Assalamu alaikum, hello and good afternoon. I hope that the month of Ramadan is thus far going well for you and we are fast nearing the end of Ramadan. You are listening to Atiyah on the Mental Health and Emotional Wellbeing show on Ramadan Radio Wolverhampton, online on ramadanradiowolves.com. In the show, we hope to provide information that might be helpful to support your well-being and the well-being of others, because everyone's mental health matters. You can listen back to this and previous shows on Ramadan Radio's YouTube channel, alongside finding further mental health information on my Twitter feed at Atiyah3. We are not here to offer you any advice in place of your clinician. However, we will share information that might encourage you to seek support. If you feel you need to discuss your health and well-being following this show, then please contact your GP. We're not taking any live calls today. However, you are welcome to send comments in via the WhatsApp messaging number on 07440 420 432. In the show today, I'm pleased to invite Rukhsana Ahmed. She is a psychotherapist and a trainee psychologist, and she joins us in the show today to talk about pain. We're thinking about pain today in the show today. And here's Rukhsana. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the show, Rukhsana.
Wa alaikum salam, Atiyah. First of all, a huge thanks to you and Ramadan Radio Wolverhampton for giving me this opportunity to come on your show. Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you on the show. Rukhsana, can you tell us a little bit about what got you interested in working with pain? What do we mean by pain?
Okay, so there are two questions together.
Yeah.
Let me answer your questions in reverse order. First, I'll start with the second question, which is, what do we mean by pain? Okay, yeah. So pain is essentially our body's it's an essential function that we all have experienced at some point in our lives. I mean, in our day-to-day life, we experience pain. Maybe a sprained ankle during running. Not that I do much of running. Raised elbow in the garden, or many other similar injuries, similar experiences. They all indicate a point of injury or tissue damage causing that pain. It's like an alarm system telling us that something is not right, telling us there's an intruder, and we attend to this pain quickly. This pain also serves another purpose. When we attend to this pain, it means that we will rest that elbow now, we will rest that ankle for it to heal. So the purpose at this point this pain is serving is for us to have a bit of rest. What I am going to talk about today is another type of pain. And you see, with the grazed elbow and sprained ankle, antiseptic creams, appropriate rest, just like I said earlier, and maybe physio's suggested exercises, they will help us heal that point of injury. The other type of pain is the pain that would be persistent. This time, the alarm has gone off, but there is no intruder. There is no apparent tissue damage or injury. However, we will continue experiencing this pain, hence the name chronic pain, that is persistent. It's lasting longer than few days or few weeks. Chronic pain also refers to the type, like I said, that it's the type of pain that has lasted for more than 3 months, and there isn't a particular point of injury. Chronic pain also we can experience in particular illnesses, like any long-term illness such as COPD or cancers or many other conditions will cause chronic pain. And traditional medicine would no longer be as effective in that pain. And the pain would also affect our mood and mental state. So that's your first question, that what do we mean by pain? So in a nutshell, I mean, that's a very, very brief introduction of pain.
Yeah. So there's
I would come to your, sorry to interrupt you.
So there's short-term pain, there's long-term pain, and there's a difference. between the two, and chronic pain is alluding more to. Chronic pain seems to be alluding more to long-term pain and the impact of the pain, I think is what you're saying. But obviously you'll probably talk a bit more about that a little later. I suppose the second part of my question was about, you know, what interested you in working with pain or focusing on pain in your area of mental health.
Yeah. So as you know, that I've been working in mental health for a number of years now. And in my experience of working in mental health, I often come across individuals who would be referred for anxiety or depression or low mood. However, I noticed that when we would start working together, I mean, asking questions about the onset of their difficulties, and you know, to get that bigger picture together, we would start putting different pieces together, but the emerging picture would be different to what may have been at the forefront. I'll give you an example here. I was working with a client, and this lady was referred by her GP for depression. So as we do in therapy, we started asking questions like when her depression may have started, what was happening in her life at that time, what's happening now, what was working well, what wasn't working well. And I learned that onset of a physical health condition had contributed to feelings of helplessness. And those feelings were that I have pain, I can't do housework as effectively as I used to. This feeling, or shall we say belief, of this lady led to lack of motivation. What's the point of doing anything? What's the point of trying this? It will increase my pain. And that thought process and the subsequent behavior of limited activities, it started this cycle that manifested as depression. At that time, I had little knowledge of chronic pain. So my intervention primarily focused on depression, helping the lady recognize and manage difficult thoughts. I introduced behavioral strategies to encourage activities that would require like minimal physical exertion. However, I noticed that there was limited improvement in her depressive symptoms. This prompted, I was aware that chronic pain was something that we had not touched as such. We didn't go deeper. We talked about it, we explored that, but at that time we couldn't go any deeper. So that prompted my interest in pain, that if I have better understanding of pain, pain as a unique experience, then any interventions that I will be introducing to the clients, they would be researched and evidence-based. So hence, with the hope that they would be more effective. So that's how my journey of learning about pain started. And what I have learned so far, I would say that I mean, this topic is huge. It goes back to centuries. It goes back to the times of Romans and Abyssinia. So over 1,000 years. So when I compare my learning on the topic, I would say it's very much in its infancy. But then again, what I've learned so far, I'm here to share with you today.
Thank you. Thank you, Rukhsana. That's very insightful. So we see that actually your interest in pain has come from working with a person who was experiencing pain, but when she was finally able to name that perhaps the pain was the core of the depression and causing the depression, it sounds like you had some limited time in working with that and wanted to seek further knowledge around that. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. I wanted to learn more about pain. I mean, in a nutshell, just like I said at the beginning, that to understand pain, yes, there are two types of pain. There's acute pain, there's chronic pain. But what else is involved in that pain? With acute pain, obviously, you treat it immediately, you know, after a few days, the injury is healed, you are fine. But chronic pain is more than that. It's not as simple as chronic pain, as acute pain. So our understanding have to be as comprehensive about this topic, as complicated the topic itself is.
Yeah, and it can be, but it's quite broad, isn't it, when we talk about pain? So I think what I tried to read in between the lines when you were talking there was that, you know, when the symptoms kind of worsened for this person, or any individual who's experiencing pain, the perception and awareness of pain differs, does it not?
Definitely, perception of pain is definitely that obviously is different between both types of pain. So with the acute pain, well, we know that it's a small injury, it will heal, and even though it might be quite painful at that time, we kind of bear with it, don't we? Whereas with chronic pain, one thing that I would say makes it more complicated is just like I said earlier, that there might not be a particular tissue damage. We might not be able to have a point of injury. So that makes it slightly complex. It makes it more worrying for the person in pain when they don't know what has caused this pain. There might be some investigative procedures, and doctor might again give some kind of diagnosis. But then diagnosis itself might be more stressful for the person, because sometimes certain diagnoses, they don't even make sense. Like fibromyalgia. Fibromyalgia is quite a complex condition. And even though that's not my intention to talk about fibromyalgia, because that again is a totally different topic, and in itself it's quite complex. But I'm just giving an example that arthritis or fibromyalgia or other certain conditions, they can cause a lot of stress and, in the reverse order, they can cause a lot of pain. But additionally, they would cause a lot of stress as well for the person experiencing pain.
Right. And what about severity? What happens when the symptoms become severe? You know, what do you mean by that? The complexity. So,
I suppose some of the complexity would come from, it can come from a number of reasons: lack of understanding of the person, of the condition. If we don't fully understand a particular condition that, or the diagnosis that the person has been given, if they don't fully understand that diagnosis, if they don't fully understand that condition, that can cause them a lot of stress. So just like I said earlier, that then their pain is twofold: is the pain itself, and then the stress of not knowing much about fibromyalgia. Oh, what is fibromyalgia? I have no idea. Arthritis, I understand, I've heard about arthritis, but what happens to my body when I get that pain? What is arthritis doing to my body? So all these different things, this perception of illness or lack of perception of illness, it can cause greater stress for the person in pain. And there is a strong link that has been established through research, that there is an increased link between stress and the experience of pain.
Right. So as you were saying there, you're talking about the link between increased stress and the feeling of pain. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, that is a good question. We might think that pain is very much a physical experience. Surely it happens in the body. And stress is more of a feeling. It's a psychological experience. When we experience stress, it's in our head, it's in our mind. And in reality, it is the two sides of the same coin. Stress is also like an alarm system, just like acute pain. See, what happens in stress is that, again, stress function is to alert us to what's happening in our environment. So stress prepares us to handle certain situations. Stress is like an adaptive process that will put our body in that state of getting ready, that fight or flight phenomenon. For example, if you have a driving test tomorrow, that stress of the test will serve as a motivator for you to master your driving skills before you go for the test. So when the test is over, your stress levels should go back to normal. And that is in an ideal world. However, we know that in this modern world, it's not as simple. So if we stay with the driving example, now that you're thinking, okay, driving test over, it should be all okay. But it wouldn't be okay, because now you'll probably be stressing about what type of car you need to purchase, the cost of that car, can you afford it, what about insurance, and all the rest of the expenses that will follow. So, okay, before I go further talking about that, let me go back to I talked about fight or flight phenomenon. But let me tell you a little bit about that, because that will help us understand stress a little better. So what do I mean by fight or flight? For those listeners who may not be familiar with this concept, well, this concept was introduced in the 1900s, but it's not new. It's something that didn't just happen in 1900s. It was described in 1900s by a neurologist and physiologist, that it is body's automatic nervous system that activates when a threat is perceived, when we see a threat, when we feel that there is a threat, our body goes into this automatic motion. But the threat alert system, this has been with us ever since we were placed on this earth. Our ancestors, they survived thousands of years ago when they lived in caves and often facing deadly predators. They quickly had to make that decision for their survival, that shall I fight this predator that's in front of me, or shall I run away from here, take a flight? So coming back to the modern living, whilst our living styles have changed, we have moved away from those cave times, and we are no longer facing that kind of threats that our ancestors did. Our survival system, that mechanism that was given to us, it's still the same. That's like our default setting. We would experience stress, of course, because it serves a purpose. It helps us survive. But with the time, our stressors have evolved as well. We have different types of stressors now. Stress of getting good grades at school, college, stress of getting a good job, stress of excelling at that job, being able to fulfill our duties in different settings, as a mother, as a daughter, as a wife, as a professional. We all are functioning in so many different roles. It's like a constant move. And this goes back to what we're talking about earlier, about the pain system. When pain system is broken and activated without any intruder, that's what's happening to us in these current situations, when we are constantly facing different stressors. So in the stress situation, what happens to our body, the way it prepares us for that fight or flight situation, it releases a particular hormone that prepares us to take action. Now, that hormone is really useful because it prepares our heart, our lungs, our rest of the body, our hands, our feet, to either fight the enemy or run away from there. If we remain in that situation, because of prolonged stress, what happens that hormone is continuously released, its function is no longer adaptive. It's no longer helping us. It starts to damage our body. It becomes detrimental to the body by damaging cells, by damaging nerves and other vital organs. It can cause inflammation in the body. That in return will appear as pain. And as I had mentioned earlier, that pain is a complex topic. Just like chronic stress can cause pain, pain can cause chronic stress.
Mm-hmm. So it's a bit of a cycle, isn't it? A bit of a
yeah.
to and fro. We are fast approaching the break, Rukhsana. I shall talk to you on the other side. Welcome back. You're listening to Atiyah in conversation with Rukhsana Ahmed, and we're thinking about pain in today's show. So before the break, Rukhsana was talking about pain and the link with increased stress and the cyclical way that this works. Rukhsana, coming back to the topic, I'm just wondering, kind of, how people can manage that pain. I mean, what are the psychological treatments? You've talked a little bit there about pain and the impact on stress and vice versa. How can people manage pain? What are the psychological treatments for this?
Yeah. Okay. Well, Atiyah, research on pain, it goes back to centuries, just like I've said earlier. Some researchers, they describe, and this is from the earlier research, not the recent research. In earlier literature, pain was described as an experience of sensations, that once an injury is sensed at a particular point, through different nerves in our body, a signal is sent to the brain, and brain will interpret that signal as pain. So focus of the traditional medicine has been, and still is, and that's if we purely talk for the medical aspect of pain treatment. So that has been to heal the point of injury and repair the signal system through medication, such as if you got toothache, you would take painkillers. So point of injury is somewhere else, but you're taking painkiller that painkiller will block the signals of pain. And as I was saying earlier, that approach, it may be effective in acute pain. Coming back to chronic pain, understand that it is multidimensional. It affects the person physically, mentally, and socially. A person living with chronic pain may no longer be able to keep their employment. They may not be able to engage in their day-to-day activities as they used to. And that can have a huge impact on their emotional and social well-being. So focusing just on one aspect of pain management by addressing to the physiology, just looking at the physical aspects of pain, we may not be attending to the person in pain's psychological needs. If we only rely on medication and ignore the emotional aspects of pain, that is a job half done. So that's when psychology comes in. See, with increased knowledge about pain and continuous research, now we have learned that pain affects more than one way. It's not just physical damage that is caused by pain. Obviously, it affects us emotionally, it affects us socially. And increasing number of those individuals with chronic pain entering mental health services for symptoms of depression and anxiety. There is now a greater focus in mental health services on integrated care, combining medical treatment along with psychological therapies. So the way that works is that we look at the individual's stress management skills. We already know that there's a strong connection in the brain between stress and pain. So what happens is that we'll introduce strategies to manage everyday life stresses, to help them gain some peace of mind and control of their symptoms. Another thing that we have learned is that working with changing the thoughts and emotions, which I was talking about earlier, that when a person is living with chronic pain, their thought process would change and subsequently their behavior would change. I'm in too much pain, I can't do this, there's no point trying. So we'll work with their thoughts, with their emotions and behaviors related to pain. And we'll introduce coping strategies, not just coping strategies, but we'll encourage them to put those strategies in practice, so they have better understanding of their pain, and they are able to put the discomfort in a better context.
And that's important, isn't it? That the understanding of pain and putting that into context.
Yeah. Therapy encourages more like a problem-solving attitude. Remember earlier on, I talked about the sense of learned helplessness. There's nothing I can do. So we have learned through research that if you take any action against your pain, no matter how small that action is, it will give you that sense of being in control. You may not be in control of pain, but you are in control of your actions. So it's changing that whole approach about perceiving pain and perceiving yourself. Let me give you another example here. When I say perceiving pain, because that's another important aspect, perception of pain. If someone comes to therapy with the aim that I need to get rid of pain, then we'll help them to put that into a different context. We'll help them to reframe that belief, that we may not be able to get rid of chronic pain, but we can surely modify our behavior, how we manage with that pain. I mean, one example that I use, that I often use, is that you're throwing a party. You're arranging a party, you invited your family members, your friends, and you don't invite a neighbor who's really annoying. He's very messy, he doesn't wash himself. I'm just saying he, please, I'm not being sexist here. I'm not gender biased, it just came to my mind. So this neighbor, we'll call him Daniel. Yeah, Daniel doesn't wash regularly. Daniel doesn't brush his teeth. He's really annoying. He interrupts you when you're talking. He basically just gets on your nerves. That's how pain can be. It can get on your nerves. It will interrupt you when you are talking to someone. It will interrupt you when you're trying to do something. So you don't invite Daniel. You are having fun in your party, and all of a sudden there's a knock on your door, and Daniel comes in, and you look at Daniel and say, well, I didn't invite you. How come you're here? Daniel completely ignores you, and he walks in. You tell Daniel to go out of here. Daniel, please, I didn't invite you, go. So you take Daniel out, you shut the door, you come back, and this time Daniel came in through the window. So you take Daniel out again, you close the window, and then Daniel comes back from the back door. But this time you're really irritated. You're really annoyed because your party's being spoiled by Daniel. So now what you do, you're standing at the door. You make sure that Daniel doesn't come in. And Daniel's standing on the other side of the door. What's happening now? Where are you and where are you not? Where are you present and where are you not present? You are guarding Daniel so much that you forgot about your party. So what in therapy we encourage clients to say is that, what if you let Daniel in, but you don't pay much attention to Daniel? You notice him there, he's still annoying. He is cracking horrible jokes. Nobody's enjoying his jokes. He is smelly, you can still smell him. You can still hear his horrible, the way he talks. But you focus on yourself. You can still enjoy your party.
Right.
I suppose with that message is that when someone is living with chronic pain, and it is of that condition that the condition won't go, then accepting that pain is here, but I can't change pain, but what I can change is my behavior towards pain. And that is the message that we often try to put across to individuals accessing therapy.
Themselves in relation to the pain.
Yeah.
And understanding that dynamic, that's really interesting. And that example it describes that quite clearly. So there you enable an individual to think about their pain and think about changing the focus towards the pain, and in one sense, the attitude towards the pain. Is that right?
Sorry, you were breaking up a bit. I didn't hear you very well.
Apologies. So, in a sense, you're encouraging the individual to change their focus towards the pain.
Yeah.
The attitude towards.
Indeed. And working in mental health, I've noticed that this is something that maybe we need to learn more about this concept in our community, because I often come across individuals who probably wouldn't be aware of any services where psychological support is offered to individuals who suffer physical health condition.
We do hear about that a lot, really. I mean, that people focus more so on the physical pain than any services with regards to psychological focus on pain and treating pain. I mean, how do we encourage people to think about that psychological experience of pain and seek that support? You know, how do we encourage them? Yes, go to the GP. Yes, speak to the GP about the biological side, the physical side, and how you can get support with medication. For example, you mentioned paracetamol earlier, and blocking the kind of messages that are sent to the brain. How do we encourage people to seek psychological experience of
First of all, sorry, I keep interrupting you.
No, it's okay. That's fine.
First of all, it is about raising awareness. If we don't know about something, then we don't know. And I suppose this is where Radio Ramadan is serving this purpose, that we are raising this awareness. We are putting this message across within our community, that if you are someone who suffers with chronic pain, and every now and again, every 3 months, every 6 months, you go and see your GP for a review, medication review, for your condition review, then find out about psychological therapies. Ask your doctor, ask your GP, can they refer you for therapy? So that's one way of accessing therapy. There are also services where you can self-refer. I'm not so familiar with how things might be in different towns. Certainly where I work, people can self-refer to that service.
And are you alluding to?
I'm sure it might be.
Are you there talking about IAP? Are you talking about IAP services and their focus on long-term health conditions and supporting people with long-term health conditions? Is that what you mean? As well as other services?
But that's not.
It's not chronic pain, is it?
Yes, I mean, yes and no, because we're not specifically providing service for chronic pain as such, but definitely those people who are presenting with anxiety or depression because of a physical health condition, definitely, obviously, support is offered to them, therapy is offered to them.
And how can we raise this awareness? You talked about raising awareness. I mean, you know, what can we do within the community to raise awareness?
The more we talk about it, the more we'll know about it. So it's just about spreading the word. And spreading the word, sorry, it's after our time. So, spreading the word and just talking about it.
So spreading word, talking about pain, talking about the psychological aspect of pain, and seeking support around mental health and stress and the connection to managing that stress. I mean, ultimately it's increasing the quality of life for an individual, isn't it?
Definitely, indeed. I mean, quality of life, the way it affects quality of life, that's another huge topic, how chronic pain can impact someone's quality of life. It can take away their sense of freedom, their sense of self, the way people perceive themselves. So definitely.
I can imagine, you can learn kind of practical. learning practical and psychological tips to support well-being is really important. And if anyone's listening out there and they're aware of someone who's experiencing pain and has sought kind of medical support and are thinking about seeking psychological support, I'd really advise you to speak to your GP, would you say, Rukhsana, in the first instance, about psychological support around pain? Okay. So Rukhsana, I want to move on before we quickly run out of time. To your project, actually, your research project that you're doing at the moment is focused on pain, is it not? Can you tell me more about that research project and how we can help?
Definitely. Oh, that'll be great if I can talk about that project as well. Well, my project is on chronic pain. I'm interested in exploring individuals' experience, but specifically for those who may have lost their jobs initially or may not be in jobs at that time. Maybe they were receiving disability benefit, and that benefit, when DLA was stopped and PIP was introduced, I know that a lot of people's benefits were stopped, and they had to go through the appeal process. For some people, they managed to get PIP, but some people didn't. So how did that impact management of chronic pain when you had to go through the experience of the initial interview of DLA, disability living allowance, when you were told that, oh, you are no longer qualifying for PIP, or you didn't score enough points? And when
is that two different systems? Sorry to stop you there, Rukhsana. Is that two different systems then, from the PIP to?
Yes, initially it was DLA, disability living allowance, that was given to individuals for a number of conditions, especially those with physical health conditions. If the condition itself was impacting them in so many ways, then those individuals were given disability living allowance. But when in 2013, PIP was introduced, personal independent payment.
Okay.
And PIP has a slightly different system. It has different criteria. I think they give you scores on different areas of life, like can you prepare food? Can you plan a journey? There are different questions. And it is quite a lengthy interview.
Right.
And I've come across a large number of individuals who lost their DLA. Like when it was initially changed from DLA to PIP, they lost their DLA. And when they managed to get it back through the appeal process, when they managed to get on PIP, what PIP does is that in some conditions, it would assess you every so often. So maybe in the second interview, they lost PIP as well. Okay. So now the person is, this is not like, remember we were talking about stress, how different stressors can cause pain. So now they have an additional stress. Now they have stress of finance as well. Well, DLA was my only hope. PIP was my only hope. I can't work. I don't have any other source of income. How would I survive now? So I'm interested in those individuals' experience, that how did they make sense of that experience? How do they manage their pain, or how did they manage their pain when they were going through that process? How did the experience impacted them? So if there is anyone out there who's listening to this show today, and if you feel that actually you have gone through this experience, then please get in touch with Radio Ramadan, and I can send you further information about my project.
So you're talking there about kind of individuals' experience of pain, and then having additional stresses of moving from disability living allowance to personal independence payment, right?
Yeah.
And how they kind of found their way through that. What kind of factors contributed? Does that make sense? Is that what you're asking for?
Yeah.
So you're asking for individuals who have been through that process to get in touch with you and kind of share their experiences. I mean, how would they share their experiences? What would be the next step? Let's say somebody did get in touch with you. What would you?
If they contact you, if they contact Atiyah Ramadan and then they express their interest, and then that message will come to me. So I'll email them. I can send them my email address, and from there we can obviously talk about it. I can send them information sheet. I can talk to them more about the project. I mean, I've talked about it, what's involved in this, but the way it will take from there is that it's a semi-structured interview, just like we were talking casually today. Again, right. It will be a casual kind of discussion about their experience of both, their experience of chronic pain and losing benefits. And that kind of semi-structured discussion would be about maybe 50 to 60 minutes that I will have to record on a dictaphone. And it's all confidential. I don't ask for any personal information. I don't ask you to give me your personal information. I ask you to sign a consent form. You give consent for me to use that recording for my analysis. But during the write-up, no identifiable information would appear anywhere.
I mean,
so it's all confidential.
Thank you for sharing that, Rukhsana. I'm just wondering, I mean, with any research, some people, kind of researchers, think about where the direction of, the research and where it might kind of lead to. Do you have any kind of, reading the literature, do you have any predictions so far, or have you interviewed anyone? Or is there anything that you can share with us about that? Or is it all kind
I've interviewed a few people. I have interviewed a few people, but the type of research it is and the type of analysis I will be using, it's difficult to kind of predict direction, because this is individual's unique experience. It's someone who has gone through that experience. All I will be doing will be interpreting that experience according to how their experience will make sense to me. So it will be, again, their words, but then I'm putting it in a slightly different way. I'm not modifying their experience. I'm not modifying their words. I'm just putting it into a slightly different context. I'm presenting it in a way that is more like for the literature. Yeah. So coming back to your question, that do I have any predictions? It's difficult for me to say that. However, what I am hoping to get from this research is that it will help us understand better about chronic pain and the experience of going through that kind of experience, like losing benefits. So how do people make sense of that life event? What happens to them? How do they manage such difficulty? And so, perhaps build on that.
And for
coming back to earlier what I had said, that my responses would be better informed.
Sure.
So it will help us perhaps interventions that we would be offering there would be evidence-based.
Sure. And for those of you who are listening and want to get in touch with Rukhsana, you can contact her on r.ahmed, AHMED 11 at wlv.ac.uk. We are quickly ending the show and coming to the end of the show, sorry. And I want to thank you, Rukhsana, for joining us today and helping us think about pain. Thanks for leaving a busy schedule to do that. You can catch this show and other shows on Ramadan Radio's YouTube channel. Thank you for listening in.
Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure talking to you and being part of your show today.
Thanks, Rukhsana. Bye.
Bye-bye.